God,
For
no
one,
way. Okay, I gotta go back. Fuck. Good thing I haven't clipped it yet.
What's up, everybody? This is the Christian Man here, and today I'm really disappointed, like more so than usual, because Diablo 4 started off so strong. Blizzard hooked me in. I was invested in the story, in the gameplay, but I guess I wasn't a fish worth catching. I'm just a lowly sea bass in Animal Crossing, worth only 120 bells. I guess the reason I use this analogy is because I've accepted that I'm no longer the target demographic of Diablo games. I've realized that Blizzard ain't making these games for people with my kind of interests. In truth, the tastes of modern gamers has evolved and changed, and Diablo is more profitable than it's ever been. But that doesn't necessarily mean the games are better than they've ever been, and I'll die on that cross. So yes, you read the title right.
I definitely do have to
Diablo
agree,
4,
though.
and
like,
I think
just to stop the video real quick here. I know I'm only like 48 seconds in, even though I was actually 5 minutes in. I do have to say, like, you know, Diablo 1 and 2 are like on a completely different realm, like a completely different universe than Diablo 3 and 4. I wasn't a huge fan of Diablo 3, and I can't even really attest to the seasons. Maybe the seasonal model did make Diablo 3 better. I played Diablo 3 base game, and I was not impressed. I played it on the console, too, which made it probably worse. And then I came back for Reaper of Souls, or whatever the hell it was called, the DLC for it. I came back for that, and I enjoyed it. But, to be honest, like, I don't know, I'm enjoying Diablo 4, but I also know that, like, Diablo 4 wasn't made for, like, a Diablo, like, 2 hardcore audience. They say that they went back to their roots with the darker story, the darker aspects, and I'd say, honestly, other than Lilith, I think the darkest thing, honestly, in the whole game is, what was it, the Tree of Whispers, and they really didn't even flesh it out all that well.
it's a bad video
Let's
game.
go back.
That is my
Let's go
personal
again.
opinion. If you enjoy this game, don't let
Also, stop it for just another second here. I also feel like, too, Diablo 4 is kind of a bad game.
me change your mind, okay?
If there's one thing I love,
Wait, hold on.
it's the sight of blood.
You know,
And
I
I've seen so many people reacting
I actually
to this.
think I
feel
like this
I need to
game.
react
I'm not
it
here to
too.
police your entertainment. You like what
I've
you
probably
like,
got
that's
at
fine
least
by me,
400
man.
hours
What I'm
or
here
so
to
in
do is
Diablo 4
whine,
right
bitch,
now.
moan, and complain into the ether like an old man. Like an ancient Haradrim who can't understand why everyone's forgotten the old ways. I really wanted to like Diablo 4, but the longer I played it, the more I came to despise it. But before we jump into hell, this video is sponsored by Rocket Money, an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. This finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. What I love about Rocket Money is it keeps track of all of my recurring monthly payments, so I don't have to go to 1,000 different places to see what I'm spending all the time. It makes it very quick and easy to manage and or cancel them. I guarantee you everybody watching this is paying some kind of monthly subscription that they shouldn't be or don't need to. Rocket Money can help lower your bills, and you can monitor your spending by setting up custom budgets. No more gambling my life savings on CSGO skins, am I right, fellas? I also like to use Rocket Money to avoid paying taxes. Just kidding, I love the government. To save more and spend less, join the 3.5 million members using Rocket Money today. And your boy has got the hookup. So go to rocketmoney.com/Actman or click the link in the description to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/Actman to get started for free.
And now for something completely different.
So let's start with the positives. The combat in Diablo 4 is very fluid and fun overall. It feels good to slaughter hordes of demons with lightning bolts. Now, I didn't play much of 3, but between Diablo 1, 2, and 4, this one might have the best enemy design in the series, or at least the most interesting. In the early game, leveling up is extremely satisfying. When I saw this big skill tree for the first time, I just thought, I can't wait to max this out. And one thing I really do appreciate is that boss fights are more about dodging attacks instead of like the classic brute force. Is my number bigger than that boss's number, you know? Because it adds a much greater emphasis on skill and strategy. A lot of boss fights in D1 and D2 were battles of attrition that could get pretty tedious. Now, I played as a druid, and all the abilities were cool, flashy, and felt awesome to use. The game certainly fulfills the power fantasy many are looking for in a Diablo title, and I appreciate that Blizzard tried to return Diablo to its gothic horror roots instead of the fucking Disney cartoon art style they came up with for Diablo 3. So I think with the core gameplay, they've succeeded. Now, before we get into the real shit, let's discuss some minor complaints. For one, Diablo 4 is a modern video game.
With all the new features that people really love and appreciate in modern games.
Which means it has to be always online just to shove half-assed MMO mechanics in a game that basically has no social features and virtually no reason for players to interact with each other.
It's so easy to create a community.
What?
So, I do have another thing to say on this too. I feel like people are going to complain about the light MMO features enough, and they're going to complain enough to like the casual audience. I feel like they're going to get like a dungeon finder put in this game, and I just don't know if I
It
agree
makes
with that.
Diablo more of a social experience.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Always online also means if the servers get fucked, then so do you. It's like Blizzard literally learned nothing from Diablo 3. You know, when I see someone lose their hardcore character after putting hundreds of hours into it, and they lose it because of a server issue and not a skill issue, yeah, fuck that noise. That's bullshit. At first, I thought it was pretty cool that they added a horse into this game until I unlocked the horse. I mean, it's so janky. It takes like 10 seconds to warm up its engine before it starts running. Like what the fuck? Hey,
I also don't agree with this either. I do agree with this actually. It's not that I don't agree with it. I agree with it because I feel like the horse is like one of the worst things they've ever added to the game. Like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like Diablo 4 did not need to be this big, major, massive open world like it is. I feel like the map is too big. There's too much shit to do, especially when it comes to like season 1, when we're gonna have to re-grind all that renown and redo all those side quests and redo all the dungeons. I just don't agree with it. I think Diablo 4 should have been scaled down just a little bit. I mean, look at most of the hardcore players. Most of the hardcore players have like 6 characters level 100, and they're streaming at 12 hours a day, and just they've done it. They've cranked the game out. There's nothing to do now. And with season 1, all they're really gonna have to do is the same content plus Malignant Hearts and like whatever little seasonal quest line they come up with. Which, what is it gonna be, like 3 steps, like a side quest, and you're done? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Come on,
I agree
up.
with this though. I think
Giddy
the
up,
horse
you
is ass.
bastard. Okay, there he goes. Okay, now on to the real shit. Diablo 4, for me, contains 2 crippling, fun-ruining flaws. Flaws so important that if changed, I would continue playing the game without question. Number 1, the difficulty. Number 2, the skills. Let's start with difficulty. So I stopped playing at level 48 after beating the campaign. Now, you can run down to the comments section and tell me what a casual scrub I am, down to the comments section on World Tier 3, and how Diablo 4 starts to get fun and challenging after I beat the game and reach level 50. And if you're thinking that, you've just proven my point. Why do I have to dump 30 hours into Diablo 4 simply to unlock a difficulty option that suits my skill and experience? Well, because that's how it's always been, Actman. Yeah, you're right. The big difference is in Diablo 1 and 2, the games weren't this easy. And D2 had some extreme difficulty spikes. The base game is so ridiculously easy that by the time I got to that climactic finale in Hell, I was bored out of my mind, begging for it to end. After an experience like that, why the hell would I keep playing? I did end up doing the first capstone dungeon, and for whatever reason, that was like a light switch. It's like, oh my god, I'm actually dying to boss mechanics and not just cheap gimmicks like hard crowd control that lock me in place for 5 seconds. I'm not exaggerating when I say every single death I had, besides this boss, was from hard crowd control. The game had to stop me from moving in order to kill me. This capstone dungeon was like the highlight of my playthrough, likely because I was underleveled for it. So why is this game so easy? In Diablo 4, literally everything scales with your level. The cost of items and upgrades, strength of enemies, gear. It's funny because every quest has a level recommendation next to it, yet it's always the same as your level, so it's like, what's the point? This does provide some positive benefits. It makes it easy to play with friends of higher or lower levels. You don't have to worry about your buddy who's played for 600 hours, one-shotting everything and robbing you of the gameplay experience. Another nice touch is that you don't ever out-level quests, dungeons, or the main story, so you can progress these things in any order you want. However, the drawbacks to the scaling difficulty are so flagrant and obvious, I can't believe more people aren't talking about them. You understand what it actually means for the entire game to scale with the player's level in an RPG? It means that the challenge stays virtually the same from start to finish. Why is this a problem? Well, it's going to take a good long while to explain, but if the only available difficulty option is easy as balls, then you'll be begging for the sweet release of death. Now, we're going to be comparing Diablo 4 to Diablo 1 and 2 and to World of Warcraft a lot. While WoW and D4 are different kinds of games, the core mechanics that make an RPG fun and satisfying to grind, I feel, are the same. So let's imagine if World of Warcraft was more like Diablo 4. Picture this, you just spent a bunch of time grinding levels, doing dungeons, raids, getting the best gear, becoming stronger. You go back to the starting area and guess what? That boar you fought at level 2 takes just as many hits to kill as when you're level 70. Would you feel like a badass in this situation? No, you'd feel like an asshole. Like you just got duped into wasting your time playing an RPG that fooled you into thinking you were growing and getting stronger. Now sure, you'd certainly have more abilities at level 70 than 2, but the point is when you level up in Diablo 4, you don't get stronger, the enemies do, and you receive a skill point to deal with it. So because the challenge is consistently easy from start to finish,
So I feel like, and this is probably more so now, I don't know how long it's been since the Actman played this, but like now especially the story mode, like 1 to 50 is probably so fucking stupid easy now, it's not even funny. Like the scaling is kind of fucked up in my opinion. I don't think it's very fair that you know, from 1 to 50, I felt like a badass, right? I'm not even gonna lie, I felt like a badass. But that grind as soon as you enter World Tier 3 does get real. That World Tier 3 to World Tier 4 torment is insane. Because, you know, the scaling, I believe, doesn't even stop scaling until like level 95. So all the way up to level 90, from 50 to 95, you will have to worry about that power creep where the enemies, they get stronger, their effects hit harder. But at the same time, if you're building your character right and you're following your Paragon board and you're dropping your gear to the equivalent of your character build, I don't feel like it's really that big of a deal, to be honest. Maybe that's just me though, but I felt like, I don't know. I felt like the scaling wasn't terrible, but it could be better.
was basically playing this game on autopilot, and if I wanted a game I could turn my brain off
I'm level 95 and
I'd
I'm
grind RuneScape. But Diablo is an action RPG. I want action. I want something that's fun, exciting, and fraught with danger, and if it's got some spooky, scary moments, that's a huge plus too. This level scaling mechanic is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in an RPG. It goes beyond simply making the moment-to-moment combat stale and repetitive. And you might be thinking, well, Actman, what about Oblivion and Skyrim? Well, that's a lot different because you have some control over the difficulty, and the scaling only affects the types of enemies you encounter. So it's a lot different. To be fair, I think Diablo 4 excels in its enemy design. There's a ton of cool creepy demons like those spider hosts and the walking ball sacks that spawn flies. The Balrogs return, as do the Fallen. Everything fits a theme based on the area it's in, and I like that. Enemies can spawn.
I love the enemy design in Diablo 4. I would never argue for Blizzard to change how the enemies look in Diablo 4. I think the game looks good. I even think they hit the dark aesthetic. I think for me, mainly, my main argument for Diablo 4 would be the story. I just don't feel like it was the darkest story since Diablo 2. I feel like people should at least, even if you don't want to play the game, I feel like people should go back and just watch the cinematic cutscenes for Diablo 2. Have it on 2 different monitors or something, or maybe watch it on your phone and on your computer. However you can do it, make it to where you could see both. Watch on one monitor the Diablo 4 or the Diablo 2 story, and then on the other monitor, watch the Diablo 4 story. And watch how the cinematics play out. The only thing that I would maybe argue with Diablo 2 over Diablo 4 is the voice acting. I don't feel like it was very strong, but the game's from, like, what, 2003? Like, come on, we gotta give it a little bit of slack. Voice acting's come a long way since the early 2000s. But I feel like Blizzard definitely has lost their touch creatively with a story. I just don't feel like this is the darkest story since Diablo 2. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll take a fat L on that one if I'm wrong. Maybe it's a hard L take.
Unfreeze in the
I feel like Diablo
areas
2
or ambush
had a
you
way
when you
better
loot
story.
certain chests. Enemy movesets are flashy and fun to play around. Scaling fucks with the world and level design much more than you'd expect, because every corner of the game is now stuck at the same difficulty level. Therefore, no zone stands out or feels more challenging than the last. There is no sense of progression. Again, what if you took this scaling difficulty and added it to Elden Ring? What if you went to Caelid at the start and you didn't get your ass whooped by those giant dogs? Well, then that place wouldn't be as memorable. The desolate atmosphere and red-tinted sky would betray the tone of Caelid. The land of Caelid would not have this stigma amongst Souls fans of being a challenging, oppressive area of the game. And that's what makes it stand out. You get what I'm saying? When you give players far too much freedom to explore an open world and you don't gatekeep any sections of it, then they end up having nothing to look forward to and nothing to go back to. It feels like there's no rhyme or reason.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have to do a little more research on this, but if he didn't hit level 50, how does he even know about the gatekeeping? Because technically, wouldn't they have done some gatekeeping on this game? I feel like World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 are kind of gatekept. Like, they're kind of locked away. You know, you could go... You could go from level 50 to right into World Tier 3, but you're gonna get your ass rocked. You know, it's gonna be harder content.
Reason to what I'm doing in the
I'm gonna let
world
him
of
go on,
Sanctuary, and it doesn't matter what order I do it in, so it all just feels the same to me. Is this making any sense, or am I just talking out of my Diablo butthole? You know how in Breath of the Wild, after leaving the tutorial, you could go straight to Ganon's castle? I mean, you'd stand no chance, but that type of freedom is genius because you're given a sense of progression in the world and the different zones. You're not supposed to be here yet, but the designers still let you. I feel like this is just like basic open world RPG design 101. They dangle a super hard boss or tough enemy in front of you and say, come back when you're stronger, bitch. There's plenty of examples, the anti-guy in Paper Mario, the skeletons next to Firelink Shrine, or the sword dancer in Tales of Symphonia. That's why going back to Slaughter the Tree Sentinel was so satisfying, because at that point you feel like you've grown stronger and gotten better at the game since he whooped your ass. And it's that feeling of growth and accomplishment that I tend to chase in RPGs. Unfortunately, in my 30 hours of playing Diablo 4, I never once had that feeling. These types of difficulty spikes, they
Man, can I just say I wish I only played 30 hours of Diablo 4?
just give me something to look forward
played
to.
way more
I
than
need
that.
a challenge I can't beat yet, or a super difficult optional boss thrown in my face, a forbidden area I can't access yet. That's what inspires me to grind and get better gear, to see more of the game, right? If you brought Diablo 4's version of scaled difficulty to other RPGs, you'd see how fucking atrocious it is. Like I said, I did the first capstone dungeon at level 48, so I was 2 levels below the recommended, and after 30 hours, like, this was the challenge I'm looking for. The boss is well designed. Dying to him made me pissed. I felt some tension every time I got close to killing him and was running low on healing potions. My point is, why did I have to beat the game to start being challenged by it? Remember how simple Diablo 1 was? There were 16 levels and each one got progressively more difficult and was filled with different and tougher enemies. The soundtrack and visuals would change as you got closer to Diablo's lair and hell itself. This is a very simple way to convey to the player that the challenge was evolving. This doesn't happen in Diablo 4. It doesn't matter when you go to hell. The challenge will be the same. It's like, this is a game about fighting the forces of fucking hell. Slaying demons. I'm not the Doomslayer. I can't be the scariest thing in the game. I want it to be challenging. I want to run into some big fuck off demon that whoops my ass. Blizzard likes to remind everyone that Diablo 4 was going back to its roots. They say darkness has returned.
Well, the initial direction was Diablo 2.
The art direction for Diablo 4 is really rooted in this idea of delivering on the fantasy of a dark gothic medieval world.
And that was kind of the initial art direction of the game in general, was darker and grittier, and Diablo 2 was kind of the inspiration.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style.
Major redesign to make them feel more grim, a little scarier, a little darker.
And when writing this next chapter, we really wanted to return to our darker roots.
Everything's a little darker, everything's more difficult.
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
Without me.
Wait.
Towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style.
Major redesign to make them feel
right
more
on this.
grim, a little scarier, a little darker.
And when writing this next chapter, we really wanted to return to our darker roots.
Everything's a little darker, everything's more difficult.
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
Now, I want to stop him right there. I feel like the intro, like that trailer intro that they showed us, by 3 They Come, Blood is the Key, that opening was fucking sick. The rest of the game in between that intro and like the ending, well, actually no, that's not true. I take that back. Let me backtrack that statement a little bit. That intro, by 3 They Come, Blood is the Key, that was fucking cool. The first introduction of Lilith in the church where the villagers beat and kill that priest, fucking sick. The reveal of Mephisto, sick. Other than that, all the way, like, the rest of the game in between there, like, nothing. I'm sorry, it's not the darkest story they've ever told. I feel like they've told darker stories in World of Warcraft. I feel like they've probably told darker stories in StarCraft. I feel like they have probably done, like, way darker content back in the day than they have now. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like they've done darker stories even in WoW than they have for Diablo 4. It looks dark, but it's not dark. Look at this.
You would have no victory. And its cost will be more than you can pay.
Voice acting is top notch. I will give them that. The voice acting in this game is fucking impressive.
It's the darkest story we've ever told.
You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward.
Fucking epic. Right there is what that was. That was epic. That is a sick cutscene. And the fire on the way out. Revealing.
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
The dark tone is at direct odds with the gameplay because you're slaughtering endless hordes of trash mobs like it's nothing. You could compare this idea to Bloodborne or Bioshock or Dead Space, where the gameplay matches the tone of the locations and narrative. You see, the brilliance of Diablo 1's design is there are very few moments where you can let your guard down, even at the start, because even the trash mobs can surround you and kill your ass. This made exploration in Diablo 1 very tense and methodical. It was an action RPG, but it also felt like a survival game. But this whole aspect of surviving the forces of hell started to become more and more irrelevant when they released the second game. The issue with Diablo 1's design is that it doesn't fulfill the power fantasy modern gamers are looking for in a Diablo game. Like I said, the tastes have changed, and I accept that. Diablo fans nowadays want to kill hordes of demons that fill up the entire screen, and they want to feel like a badass. The problem I have with this is it makes most fights with basic enemies feel totally trivial and pointless, because they serve no actual threat. Now, this doesn't bother me in normal RPGs where you outlevel enemies, but because of the scaling, that's not a thing. At some point, I realized that fighting random enemies on the way to a quest was a waste of time, because the quest itself will give me demons to fight, so I might as well skip all combat in the open world entirely. You see, it's not enough to make a somewhat linear ARPG that progresses in challenge through 5 different acts. They need to make a Diablo game into some sort of endlessly replayable grind fest in order to maximize player retention and justify a live service business model. Diablo 2 was more open, but it was segmented, you know? You couldn't just run to the Act 5 area at the start of the game. If they had to have the open world, I would have suggested make the campaign somewhat linear, and then once players beat the game, the world opens up. But there would be a lot more to it than that. The point is, when you throw hundreds and thousands of trash mobs at me, it trivializes the combat and therefore trivializes the threat hell itself poses to the world of Sanctuary. When I did finally get to hell, there was a brief moment of excitement. I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I'm gonna start seeing some crazy ass enemies. And then it was the same demons I was fighting at the start of the game. Even the unique bosses aren't all that challenging. Take the Astaroth battle, it's built up quite a bit. I mean, you're fighting a Hell Knight riding a giant 5-headed demon dog. Talk about fucking epic. This should be a major checkpoint in the player's skills, and this guy should be a total badass. Instead, he's a cakewalk because of scaling difficulty.
And you know what? He's probably even more of a joke now that Blizzard's been nerfing like bosses in the story mode because casuals can't beat it. But I was the same way. I felt like Astaroth should have been like this amazing point in the game. He had been built up to that point pretty well. Like, you knew what you were facing. It was just a kind of a wet fart yet again. Kind of just a wet fart on Blizzard's end. So I agree with him on
I made a
this
video
one.
a long time ago about the most important thing every video game needs, and it's challenge. If I'm not challenged, you know, then I don't see a point. I don't see a point to playing the game, and that's how I feel about Diablo 4. I might have been willing to grind to World Tier 3 and deal with the game's lack of difficulty up to that point if it weren't for the second crippling flaw, the skills. Now, at first I was having a blast with this game, and every time I leveled up, I was super pumped to spend the next 5 minutes looking at the skill tree and carefully considering what I would put my point in. I felt like my playstyle was constantly expanding until I unlocked my ultimate. Once you do that, the game becomes extremely repetitive as your playstyle is set in stone from then on, and you're only investing points in passive bonuses and stat increases. Sure, you can respec and swap out skills, but you're only allowed 5 abilities and a basic attack. Once you max these abilities out, you can only move laterally, not vertically. You can't expand your playstyle or your arsenal of tools, you can only swap things out. Does that make sense? Yes, this limitation does create trade-offs and forces players to think carefully about what to invest in and what type of playstyle they want.
Well,
but
that's another point. If he would have played like into the World Tier 3 and World Tier 4, he would have been able to like expand his playing style. He would have been able to expand his skills. The one thing that I will agree with him on though, for sure, without a doubt, I will agree, is the skill bar, like the hot bar. That thing is ass. You should be able to have more than 5 abilities. I shouldn't have to be sitting there in the middle of combat, kill a mob, run away, and swap out a skill. Why? Why can't I have like 8 abilities? I get why their modern explanation is all, well, if we give you less stuff, then, you know, if we give them less abilities, then, well, it'll make them have to think harder about their build and their playstyle. No. Just, you did it in other games. Other games, even on console, have perfected, like, having multiple abilities at once. Give us our abilities, give us a bigger hotbar, take the ultimate out of the hotbar, make it its own button press. For one, the ultimate shouldn't even be on your hotbar. That could even fix a bunch of shit.
Diablo 2 doing this exact same thing and letting you have 8 abilities and a basic attack. And shit, 2 weapons you could swap between. Shit, man, even the original Diablo let you have, what, like 30 different abilities and magic spells? I guess this 5 skill limitation in Diablo 4 wouldn't bother me so much if it weren't so tedious to change builds, right? If you get to a super high level in Diablo 4 and decide to change your playstyle, you better have enough gold to change it back in case you hate it, because there is no loadout system, which I think would work if you could purchase like loadout slots and you could swap those out at the stash. I'd probably keep playing the game if that was a thing, but right now it just feels like Diablo 4 is insistent on...
And I actually do agree with that. Like, a lot of people who are hardcore PoE players and like Diablo players, maybe the top ARPG players won't agree with this, but I really do think the game would benefit from like a loadout system. Like, that would really benefit to be able to just, let's say you get 3 loadouts. Well, then I could put Whirlwind in a slot. I could put Hammer of the Ancients Whirlwind in a spot. And then I could, you know, I could spec out my fucking Barbarian to 3 different, like, builds. Instead of now where I have to spec into one build, I have to min-max it, I have to drop all this gear, I have to drop all these items. And then if I don't like the build, I have to then reset the skill tree. I have to then reset all the Paragon, which if you're in the 90s, 100, you probably have 5, 6 Paragon boards. You're going to have to reset all of that stuff. You're going to have to reset the whole Paragon system and your skill tree, respec, and then respec your Paragon board. And then on top of that, you're going to have to re-gear that character for that specific build. Like, and I guess technically you don't need the loadout system. You could, you know, put all of your items into your stash, and anytime you want to switch your build, you just pull those items out. But I'm talking about when you're moving up. Maybe you didn't save all that stuff. Maybe you salvaged it. Maybe you sold it. And what are those people supposed to do? Go farming for all those items again? Fuck, man. You know how hard some of them uniques and stuff are to drop in like perfect gear rolls?
Restricting the most fun aspects of its gameplay. Is it for balance? Balance for what? PvP? Who the fuck cares? WoW lets you use like 500 different abilities. Balance for PvE? That's a laugh. We just established the game is too easy up until you hit level 50. Maybe it's to force players to make trade-offs, and that seems more likely, but come on, man. It's boring.
A main cornerstone of D4 is play your way.
Between all of our different systems, you can really create a custom character in ways that was not available in previous Diablo titles.
You're a liar! You're a liar!
In the eternal conflict between the high heavens and the burning hells, Diablo 4 offers you more choice than ever before.
This too is false.
Because we have all of these different ways to make your own character, there's a lot more possibility compared to previous titles of how you want to play, how you want to build your character.
Liar!
You see, I had this fantasy of being a lightning-throwing, shape-shifting druid. I wanted to have a hybrid between those two builds, but I had to settle for just the lightning. Why can't we have more hotkeys? Is it a technical limitation, like because they're making a game for consoles too? Well, that doesn't make sense because Dragon Age Origins, Fable, and other RPGs have had workarounds for that issue. But let's look at another top-down RPG that's also on console. Divinity Original Sin 2, one of the greatest video games ever made. You can invest points in the memory stat to unlock more skill slots. There's no limit, and you can do this with 4 different characters. It's literally like that easy, or at least it would be if when you leveled up, you can invest points in attributes, but you can't do that in Diablo until level 50. What the fuck? What were they thinking? Look, these are 2 radically different kinds of games, but the point is, as someone who's played a fuck ton of RPGs, I have a lot more fun with this than this. The limitations on skills and the backwards-ass design of scaling difficulty have basically killed any long-term enjoyment I could have had with this game.
You blew it!
Diablo 4 is plagued by so many
You blew it!
thinking type of issues, it's almost comical.
What the fuck?
You know how when PC players play a first-person shooter and they lose their mind if they can't control the field of view? That's exactly how I felt playing Diablo 4. Like, bro, why is the camera so zoomed in? They got custom games in Warcraft 3 that let you zoom out further than what the base game lets you. Dude, zooming out is one of the biggest features they flaunted when they were promoting StarCraft Remastered. I just don't get it. Look, I'll show you, okay? Here's the FOV in there.
And that is a fat W take right there. That is a fat W take. I don't even disagree with that at all. I want to know why I can't zoom it out. I'm used to the Diablo 2 fucking perspective. I'm used to that. I ain't used to fucking this Diablo 4 bullshit where it's so zoomed in.
Here's Diablo 2.
And there's no way to change it.
Same thing. Even Diablo 3 somehow got this right. And then, well, what the fuck?
Diablo 4.
Throughout my playthrough, I kept spamming the scroll button in vain, hoping
I do it now
zoom
too.
out, but
I'm
it
always
never
spamming
does.
the scroll
Wait,
wheel
hold
trying
the
to get it to
phone.
fucking scroll.
You can zoom out? I've been playing for 20 hours and now when I'm in hell near the end of the goddamn game, it can finally zoom out? Why couldn't I play the rest of the game like this? Why does it only zoom out at parts where the developers want to show off the level design? The level design's beautiful, by the way. Why do I even have to complain about this? It just shouldn't be an issue. Just let me zoom out. I figure we might as well discuss the side content Diablo offers. Well, most of it is pretty fun initially, like the dungeons, some side quests have interesting bits of story, and the strongholds are fun, lengthy battles. But these activities get old real quick. It's pretty obvious they had a quantity over quality mentality to ensure there was a lot of content for players to grind and complete. So there's 5 main areas in the game, and by completing the side content, you earn renown, which lets you unlock important things like extra skill points, more potion capacity. It's pretty much necessary to max these things out after you beat the campaign. Problem is, once again, as a result of the live service, Blizzard intends to reset the renown you've earned with every season. Why is this a problem? Because most Diablo fans fucking hated grinding for it.
I don't know why they are holding on to the idea that
good take right
refarming
here.
Renown will be fun. I don't want to do the same
Asmongold.
side quests again. They're fucking annoying and they're a waste of time. I don't want to have to re-clear the same pointless dungeons for no reason.
You've probably seen people say stuff like, if I don't want to have to grind Renown again, if I have to grind Renown again, I'm not playing anymore. And I'm sitting over here thinking to myself, so if the side content is that bad, if it's so boring that you never want to experience anything like it ever again, then that's not content, dude. Those are chores. You're at the grocery store right now, checking off a list. You know, maybe these activities are worth re-examining and redesigning to make grinding Renown a fun experience so that players are open to doing that again. In the promotional videos, Blizzard kept reiterating how much content there is and that players will never run out of things to do.
It's been created to feel full of things to encounter, full of secrets to discover, full of characters to interact with, full of stories to find.
You have so many activities that you might run into.
Diablo 4 offers so much more for players to do than ever before.
We've really crafted the world to feel like there's...
But just because it offers more shit to do, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's so meaningless. Having all that content, but really at the end of the day, none of it means anything. You're literally doing it to grind out the renown, and that's it.
always something just around the corner to find.
Every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for you to experience.
There's over 120 dungeons to play through and find. We've got almost 150 dungeons in the game.
There's going to never be an absence of something to do.
It's really just going to be a way to keep coming back and experiencing more Diablo 4.
It's usually a red flag when I hear developers talk like this, because what they're actually trying to say, if you translate it, is our game is going to have endless amounts of boring, tedious, and shallow activities. They focus on the scale of content instead of its quality. They prioritize the grind instead of the fun, the exciting, and the new. I don't know, man. I guess I just don't get it. I don't understand the appeal of having my progress and my character reset every few months, and then having the devs try to pass it off as a feature and not a corrupt save file. You know, getting to level 40 and saving up enough money to buy a mount in WoW Classic was a big deal. I felt so accomplished after I did that, and that I could explore the world much more efficiently. But more importantly, Blizzard didn't take my mount away after 3 months and say, go do all that shit again, asshole. What's next on the agenda? Stats and loot, the bread and butter of most RPGs and the main reason people play them for hundreds of hours. On some occasions, you do get a nice reward for completing a quest or defeating a boss like this.
I still don't think the uniques are great, and I think the itemization is still fucking whack in this game. Other people will probably disagree and say that I've got a fat L take on that one, but no, I cannot. I don't know. I just can't with the uniques, especially for barbarian. Maybe they're different for the other classes and they're better, but the barbarian uniques are pretty ass.
Campaign. Now, it might just be me, but I find the majority of loot drops in Diablo 4 to be terribly unexciting, to the point where I hardly read what most items actually do. And at a certain point, I just walk past chests because they rarely hold anything of interest. I think the loot is extremely boring for a few reasons. Number one, it all looks extremely generic. Maybe it's because I'm playing as a druid and just the druid items are boring, but when I look at the loot in Diablo 1 and 2, it just looks way fucking cooler. You got like the Skull Shield or Arcane's Valor. I mean, look at the helmets and how colorful and different they are. But in Diablo 4, when I find a pair of boots, I feel like it's the same fucking pair of boots I've already seen 100 times. Am I the only one who
and you probably have.
Am I missing something?
No.
Am I tripping?
You've definitely seen it. If I could go back into my VODs and find it, I would definitely agree with his take on this one, because fucking, nah. I've dropped like the same 4 uniques like 100 times in the last like 3 days. No shot, swear to God. I should go through my VODs on Twitch, crop out where I've dropped uniques, and put it into a video, and it'd probably only be like a 2-minute video, but it would show how the itemization is just ass in this game. Because I dropped the same uniques with the same stat rolls, but they're worse every time. I have dropped fucking the Pennant Greaves, or the Penitent Greaves, like fucking 6 times. They're all worse than the original roll that I got. I have dropped the Magnum Opus fucking sword for the Barbarian. I've dropped that at least a dozen times, and 11 of them are ass. 11 of them. Yeah, I don't know. Blizzard really needs to work on the itemization and like the unique system going into Season 1. If uniques are going to be as bad as they are now, I don't see the point of all the hours of grinding that you're going to do to maybe get lucky and get one uber unique that might be good. Maybe, if it even goes with your build.
You know, maybe it also has to do with the fact that every item takes up the same amount of space and the icons all look so similar that in my brain, it all morphs together. There are very few moments where finding a piece of loot is genuinely exciting in Diablo 4. And part of that is because I'm also not a huge fan of RPGs that dump a bunch of meaningless numbers and stats into the menu and equipment. Remember how awesome it was in WoW when you got that first item that boosted your stats instead of just armor?
Oh, dude, 4 strength, 4 stam, leather belt.
Classic meme.
Level 18.
I think part of the reason this clip became a meme is his excitement mirrored our excitement. And that was for a belt that he found at level 18. I have never been even close to this excited for any item in Diablo 4. When appraising the value of an item in an RPG, it really helps to understand.
I would say, I don't know about that. Like, the first legendary that I dropped and the first unique that I dropped, like in the story mode, kind of gave me an incentive to want to keep grinding. Like that first legendary drop was sick, but you know, 300-400 hours into the game now, I don't even really look at legendaries anymore. And you know, I mean, I look at them to see the stats, but as soon as I see they're no good, I just trash them. I throw them away immediately. So I would say, you know, to each their own on that
game's
one,
mechanics and what certain stats actually improve. If the stats and numbers are too convoluted, then players aren't going to understand.
Yeah, look at this too. Look at this drop. Lightning resistance, cold resistance, fire resistance. All of these are fat L's because the resistances don't even work properly. So all of this shit is a fat L. The only thing that would be good on this for a low tier player would be this right here. This 1.6% damage reduction and then the 12% damage reduction from the aspect. That'd be like the only good thing on that whole
increasing
armor.
them, right? Again, you look at items in WoW, it's like plus 17 stamina. What does plus 1 stamina do? Plus 10 HP. Okay? You can easily wrap your head around that. But because the sense of progression in Diablo 4 is so fucking skewed, now you find an item that's like plus 9 to all stats. And you're like, what the fuck? That sounds awesome. I'm only level 20. And then you'll look at what 1 point of strength does. And what does it do? Gives you 1 point of armor. Okay, well, I have 3,000 points of armor, so this is worthless to me. I can't get over this. Like, strength doesn't improve your damage or nothing? What does strength typically do in an RPG? You want to use this big-ass weapon? Strength requirement. You want to do more damage? Strength. Bro, even in Warcraft 3, the strength stat did more than what it does in Diablo 4, and that wasn't even an RPG. I've never played an RPG like this where the core stats felt so fucking useless, so meaningless to increase. This is apparently what the entire Paragon board is all about. Yeah, and let's talk about that shit. How do you balance a game that has skill trees this big by making each point basically worthless? Diablo 1 did it better. I cannot for the life of me understand what they were thinking. The reason I bring all this up is because so many of the stats on items I look at it and I'm like, well, this doesn't mean anything to me, or it doesn't feel important. League of Legends champion design suggests that giving players fewer but more meaningful passives is far more desirable than a bunch of passives that offer minimal changes, because you're not going to notice most of this shit at all, especially when the enemies are scaling with you. There's so many different damage modifiers.
Scaling with you up to a certain level. scaling with you all the way up to level 95. And then after that, I'm pretty sure the scaling stops.
Fires, you know, complex number calculations like damage to close enemies, damage to distant enemies. Well, where's the stat for damage to enemies at a moderate distance? Why don't you have that as well? Why is it necessary to have like 8 different stats to calculate how much damage something does? Why do resistances reduce incoming physical damage as well as magical damage? It's just like, I just think this is like the worst stat system I've ever seen in an RPG. It defies belief to me. So again, going back to the original, enemies didn't respawn and levels were finite. So you were encouraged to kill everything, pick up every item, and sell the shit you weren't using. You could sometimes buy a really good item with gold, and in the later stages purchase elixirs to boost stats, and of course stock up on potions. But Diablo games, in my opinion, even the first two, always had a way of making gold feel kind of worthless.
Excuse me.
That has never been more apparent than in Diablo 4. It's like you'd only have 2 options: buy the shittiest gear you'll never use for dirt cheap, or drop all of your money on one overpowered item. I hate having just these 2 choices. So when you keep checking the shop inventory in Diablo 4 and it's never anything good, or it's something that requires you to drop all your money so you can't respec, you just stop checking. This blows my mind. The entire concept of purchasing items and equipment in an RPG is superfluous. That's a big fucking problem. I never once in my entire playthrough purchased a piece of equipment from a store. You know, sure, I did things like upgrade my potions or craft elixirs or upgrade my gear, but I never bought anything. In fact, this item has more item power, but the ring I currently have equipped has higher resistances. So like, why the fuck would I ever buy this or that or that? Imagine creating an RPG where
Now, I heard after a certain level, though, like, once you hit a certain requirement, I think it's like 60s or 70s, like, the vendors actually do have pretty good shit.
Game currency feels worthless. At one point, I stopped trying to pick up gold entirely if it was 2 seconds out of my way. And again, because the value of items scales and everything is progressively getting more and more expensive, I feel like I'm only able to afford 1 or 2 items at any particular store. So I'm not about to drop all my cash on something that I'm just going to end up outscaling in an hour or 2. I think you've royally fucked up the in-game currency when taking 3 seconds to double back and pick up a pile of gold feels like a waste of time. So many facets of this game feel superfluous to me, and I'm not saying they are superfluous, that's just how they feel to me. So in a nutshell, my playstyle eventually developed into, okay, I'm skipping chests because those are worthless. I run through all combat in the open world because it's unnecessary. If gold isn't in my path, I don't go back for it. I skip through
the whole
sections
game
of dungeons so I can complete them faster.
Skipping the whole
dialogue
game
and side quests so I can grind the renown faster. I don't go into the cellars anymore, and it's just like, dude, I'm just skipping the game. I'm just skipping past all this shit. This is the game. All right, Diablo 4, you've got one last chance to redeem yourself, and that's with this story. Is it any good? Well, I'm pleased to say that the opening cutscene is pretty fucking awesome. It begins with some grave robbers who are in way over their heads. They stumble across a power, the likes of which they can't even...
Watching this makes me want to go play Diablo 2 so fucking bad. This makes me want to go play Diablo 2 so fucking bad. And I think I might. I think tomorrow when I get on and stream, I think I might just play Diablo 2.
And immediately the game establishes that sense of terror and fear that was sorely lacking in Diablo 3. Then your character arrives in a town, you clear a dungeon of demons out for them, you head back and start celebrating with the townsfolk when all of a sudden, oh shit, you're poisoned. This guy brings you to a shack where they perform some kind of satanic human sacrifice ritual, and it's like, okay, all right. You got me invested. So while there are some decent moments here and there, after the introduction, the story takes a fucking nosedive like Amelia Earhart. The beginning and end of Diablo 4 are the game's strongest parts, narratively, likely because there are only 2 pre-rendered cutscenes that sandwich the rest of the story. Almost everything that happened in the middle is just a blur to me, which is strange because the setup for the plot is very interesting. You've got Lilith and Inarius.
I thought Inarius's design looked really cool. Obviously, Lilith is sexy. Lilith, her design is amazing.
And a demon who created Sanctuary. This is the first.
And I thought the concept was really fucking cool too. Like, not to pause again like this, but I thought the concept was pretty fucking cool too. Like, you had an archdemon, or is she a primeval actually? I probably haven't even paid enough attention to even know. But you have a demon in an angel. Pretty sure an archangel, making a world, having some kind of pact, wanting to get away from the fight between heaven and hell. I thought that concept itself was really cool, but I just feel like Blizzard, and maybe you know what? I'll defend Blizzard on this take right here. Maybe this was like just a setup, and Blizzard's gonna fix this, like, with an expansion or something. Maybe one of the DLCs will fix, like, what's wrong with the initial story.
We've seen, like,
because we all know. Sorry to pause again. We all know how Blizzard and other gaming companies are now, where they make a story, and I think they even announced this. Let me make sure I'm not speaking out of class. I'm pretty sure there was like an article somewhere. There was an article somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe no, it wasn't on IGN. IGN's ass. Man, I can't remember whose video I was watching on YouTube. But the article that I read said season 1 was made at the same time as the actual core story. So I'm wondering how much of that story has been winded into like the seasonal model and the expansions. So maybe this game could be better, like, down the road.
And a demon form some kind of an alliance. They seem to be the only entities on each faction with a desire to end the war between heaven and hell, or at least escape it. One of the major issues with the story is the parts that don't include Lilith, Mephisto, or Inarius are terribly mundane. Characters are swapping in and out, and they get killed off, you know, the scene after they're introduced. Some of them I even forget their name, like this guy who was in the tree. Nafane, I totally forgot he existed until I went back and watched my own footage. I think Diablo 4's story is further proof to me that Blizzard's style of writing has deteriorated severely in the last decade. You know, if you compare the end of act cinematics in Diablo 2 to 4, I mean, it's a major difference.
Now,
Huge difference, by the way. Sorry, I had to go run to the restroom.
Creators of Sanctuary.
Huge difference right
Angel
here.
and demon. Father and mother are dead. I heard later that he was defeated.
That cinematic is fucking amazing.
Stone were destroyed in Hellforge. All except one.
The big difference is in Diablo 2, they actually show the events that Marius, the narrator, is talking about, as opposed to just like some boring static shots of like a horse walking through the snow. It's why I seen like this.
Lilith and Astaroth had made a deal, and we were the ones who would pay the cost.
Is nowhere near as interesting or engaging as this.
Take it. Take it, take it. I'm glad this is finally over, Tyrael. Everything happened exactly as Lilith wanted. We just danced to her music.
It's why I'm more interested in this.
Oh, I failed, Tyrael. I couldn't do as you asked.
And not so much this.
Donan was
Sorry, I had to take a couple ibuprofen. I got a little bit of a headache.
Not her. Not answers. Look what the stone has done to me.
Playing Diablo 4 is like dating a pretty woman. The kind that the longer you talk to her, the more you realize she has the personality of a tampon. Wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle. Yes, there are hundreds of NPCs in several different towns, but the world design of Diablo 4 is a byproduct of the game.
All right, cool. I was just doing a little bit of research while I was listening to his points, and it was on Forbes. That's where it was. It was Forbes.com. And it was talking about larger future seasons, earned platinum, and uber unique drop rates. And it says right here, in terms of seasonal size, one thing that was made clear was that this season may be somewhat smaller than future ones. It's the first season of the game, and not only will they learn from it, it was also developed simultaneously while Diablo 4 was launching. So, my biggest question is why did we have to have this preseason? Why did we have to play for a month before the first season started? Why couldn't they have just launched the game with the first season like going? Whatever. Probably an L take for me, but I'm so over the seasonal model in video games. I'm still gonna play it. I'm gonna give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt when it comes to when it comes to this. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and hope to God that Blizzard can make a good game.
Play, less so the story. Now, what do I mean by that? What are those words that are coming out of your mouth, Actman? Let me explain. The open world isn't there to service some kind of overarching or branching narrative. It's to create a big-ass map that the developers can litter with tons of activities to keep players busy and keep them grinding. You might have noticed that almost none of the optional dungeons in this game have any sort of story or history behind them. What I find the most immersive game worlds are those that tell a story while I'm playing through them. Now, if you want to understand what's so wrong with Diablo 4's world, we need to look back at the first game, because it's the polar opposite of everything Diablo 4 is trying to be. I think Blizzard knows that Tristram is the most memorable location in the series, because in every sequel they find a reason to take you back there. Thing is, Blizzard doesn't seem to understand why Tristram is such an iconic and memorable location. Oh yeah, the music does some pretty heavy lifting.
The music is the biggest thing with the original Diablo series for me. That Tristram like theme, I don't even know what kind of guitar it's played on.
But the main reason,
but whatever instrument they use for it is fucking amazing. I love the sound of Diablo 2. Like, the whole OST is amazing to me.
Comes down to this phrase: less is more. Bigger isn't always better. Just ask my gargantuan penis. Diablo 1 took place in a single location, Tristram, and there were 8 characters that lived there, a couple cows, and a cathedral that led down to hell where the bad guys were. Each character offered a combination of advice, exposition, and insight for the player. Whenever you got a quest in Diablo 1, you could ask each of the 8 residents about it. This added important context and massive build-up to each quest.
I saw what Farnham calls the Butcher, as it swathed a path through the bodies of my friends. He swung a cleaver as large as an axe, hewing limbs and cutting down brave men where they stood.
I know more than you think about that grisly fiend. His little friends got a hold of me and managed to get my leg before Griswold pulled me out of that hole. I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection.
Alright, so is the dialogue maybe just a little bit cringy? Maybe. But is the story, like, just amazing? I love the fact, and you know what? Maybe this is a fucking fat L take coming from me. Maybe, right? But I felt like Diablo 2 did the questing system more justice. I feel like Diablo 2 really did justice to the quest line, because when you would get a single quest...
Well, part of the reason is for every quest in Diablo 1, you get to consult the same 8 characters. This makes
I just rewound it.
So it makes this style of writing is the Tree of Whispers.
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
Okay, sorry. I accidentally, like, rewound the video there. So my biggest thing is like, with Diablo 2's quests and acts, right? Like, you would be in the town, and you would get the quest. Well, then you could go and talk to literally everybody in town, and everybody in the town would have a different interpretation of every quest that you went to do. In Diablo 4, I feel like it was go here, talk to this person, quest, repeat. go to this person, talk, request for like it was always the same character. It was never multiple characters. Like I think even in the beginning, maybe you had like Donan and that girl who was trying to save her mom. You had like two characters to interact with, but not really. Like the story just didn't feel as fleshed out as this one does. And maybe that's just nostalgia. Because ultimately, like, my favorite game is Diablo 2. I think Diablo 2 was the best one they ever did, and probably going to be the best one they've ever done. I don't think any game, honestly, in the franchise could top Diablo 2. Probably a fat L take from me, but I'm just saying it like it is. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying it like it is. I think Diablo 2 was the best Diablo game they've ever made. Hands down, bar none. Including today with the remaster. I actually think Diablo 2 Resurrected is better than Diablo 4. Now, am I still going to play Diablo 4? Yes. Do I still enjoy some aspects of Diablo 4? Yes. I could still like a previous game and still enjoy this one for what it is. It's just a ARPG zombie game. Like, I just go zombie mode. I just go into fucking autopilot and let the game play itself. So that's just me.
Had to run away. So everyone in town is telling you this guy is a big fucking menace, but from their own unique perspective. This added realism to the world of Diablo and its characters. It created build-up and tension to every quest and every boss fight. There's a reason Blizzard keeps bringing back the Butcher in newer Diablo games, and it's because...
Can I just say I really don't like the Butcher being in this game? I fucking hate the Butcher being in this game. It's like... what significance does the Butcher have in the lore of Diablo 4? Is there a story reason he's there? Is there a lore reason he's there? Or is he just there kind of like what they did with Pyramid Head? Where Pyramid Head had significance in one of the titles, and then they just started adding him in just to have him there. And I don't mean with the video games, I meant with the movies. Obviously, in the video game, he was meant to be in Silent Hill 2. But with the movies, they would just add him into the movies, even though he had no reason to be there. I feel like that's the same with the Butcher. Yeah, it's cool to hear fresh meat. Like, yeah, it's cool. It's fun, but at the same time, I don't understand why he's even here to begin with.
Because this quest from the first game is just that iconic. But why?
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
Well, part of the reason is for every quest in Diablo 1, you get to consult the same 8 characters. This makes the plot easy to follow as it's not being communicated through like 40 different characters. Diablo 4 is like the exact opposite. It feels like once again the designers had to justify this open world design by having you constantly jumping from one area to the next. No one person, quest, or area is given enough screen time to become truly memorable, aside from a handful of moments.
Lorath and Donan, I think, got pretty good, like, development time. I for sure think Donan and Lorath both got significant screen time. Other than that, I couldn't name another fucking character.
Prime example of this style of writing is the Tree of Whispers. It's an ancient tree decorated with the severed heads of those who pursued its knowledge. Now that sounds fucking awesome, but this place has barely any build-up to it at all. You can't really ask characters to prod their knowledge of it. Lorath and Donan might have a couple lines, but it's nothing deep. So it makes this ultra cool area of the game feel far less important than the world is trying to make it out to be. What it boils down to is, ironically, the original Diablo, which takes place in a single town consisting of 8 characters, tells a vastly more interesting, relatable, and immersive story than all of the towns and people in Diablo 4 combined. Now, maybe that's just nostalgia squirting out my ass, but let me convey this point with a question. Can you name a single blacksmith in Diablo 4?
Now, this is where I think this starts to kind of go off the rails a little bit. Because, like, we're trying to compare Diablo 2 to Diablo 4 in the sense of, like, scale and, like, story and immersion and shit. I don't feel like the modern gaming audience would really give a fuck. I really don't think they would. I don't think they would give a shit at all. I think at the end of the day, they're there to quest. They're there to get their gear. They're there to farm out their levels or their renown if they're really crazy. I hated doing it, so I could only imagine how everybody else feels. I thought it took me like, what, a week and a half? Maybe 2 weeks, because I was just like, I would start to do renown and I couldn't handle it. But anyways, I don't think that any of that really fucking matters. Not to this modern audience crowd. Not to modern gaming in 2023. I don't think any of this matters. I bet you, I'd be willing to bet you, outside of the hardcore audience, nobody could name any of these characters anyways. Even the characters that they talk to in the story, like Donan and Lorath. I don't think people even fucking remember them. Most people probably just tried to get through the content as quick as they could. So I don't know if the scale of Diablo 2 and the scale of Diablo 4 can really even be compared to each other. Because Diablo 2 is like such a small game in comparison to Diablo 4. But maybe the whole thing is that Diablo 4 just shouldn't have been open world. I don't think it should have been. But maybe that's just me. I really hate too that the game doesn't have like more depth to it. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I just didn't go out of my way to find the depth. But
remember Griswold?
Whoa, what can I do for...
I think it would have been cool to have it to where all the vendors you could go up to and they would have unique dialogue for that town or that area. I think that would be really cool. And maybe, I think they have a name, but I couldn't name them. Couldn't name a single blacksmith. But it would be cool if maybe even just in Kiovashad, like all the vendors and all that shit had unique dialogue. Maybe you don't have to do it for all 5 regions, but maybe just in the main hub, because Kiovashad is supposed to be your main hub. Maybe in there give like the characters like some sense of like they're living in the world and it's open and it's a livable world.
Oh yeah, of course you do. Now run with me on this for a second. Instead of having one blacksmith who's like an actual character that you can talk to, who also repairs your shit and sells you stuff, we now have 75 soulless, empty blacksmiths scattered across the land of Sanctuary, none of whom play any role in the story or contribute at all to the world building. This doesn't apply to just the blacksmiths in the world of Diablo 4. It applies to all vendors in the game. They serve no purpose outside of gameplay, which I guess it's fine. Like, it's lazy, but it's fine. But do you see the conundrum? Since Diablo 4 is an open world game, if you take out 70 blacksmiths and leave only 5 or whatever, then it becomes tedious to find them. And Blizzard clearly didn't want to go through the effort of writing each blacksmith to be an actual character, and I don't blame them for that. My point is that in so many ways, Blizzard seems to sacrifice world building for an open world. Now call me...
I agree with that fucking take 100%. I really wish, I really wish that they wouldn't have sacrificed the world building for an open world. I am of the ilk that if you can't do an open world, scale it back and do world building. Focus on quality over quantity. But I guess with the model that they made for this game, you really can't focus quality, or you can't focus quantity over quality, because if you only did so much, you wouldn't have enough, people would bitch. But then again, we have so much and people are bitching already anyway, so it's like, at the end of the day, it's kind of like we're contradicting ourselves and we're fucking arguing over arguing's sake at this point.
Crazy, but I think vendors and merchants play an important role in a video game, especially if that game is an RPG.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
Welcome to the Circus of Value!
Got something that might interest you.
No, I think all NPCs should play some kind of role in an RPG or offer a slice of life. But outside the characters in the main story, Most of the people who inhabit Sanctuary aren't memorable or important at all. And therefore, neither is Sanctuary itself. I don't know, man. The scaling difficulty and restrictive skill trees make the core gameplay feel extremely easy, boring, and repetitive, and with some slight changes that they'll probably never do, would improve the game vastly. The loot is uninteresting. Most of the game's content is shit I just ended up skipping trying to get to the fun part, but I never really got to the fun part. In the end, for all of Blizzard's efforts to make Diablo 4 a massive open world game with tons of replayability, content, and depth, it ends up being no deeper than the puddle in my backyard. And that is why Diablo 4 is so bad. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe to the Actman for more awesome content.
If you're not already subscribed to this guy too, subscribe to this guy. He makes banger fucking videos all the time. Obviously, I agreed with pretty much everything that he said in the video. I had a few little criticisms and complaints there, but not much.
Just a reminder that you can enjoy things even if I say bad things about it, and you can disagree with my opinions too. But don't let me rob your enjoyment or police your entertainment, alright? Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Actman signing out. Peace!
I enjoyed that video. I'm gonna upload my reaction for sure to my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel should be linked in my Twitch bio. I'm gonna for sure upload that reaction, for sure. I've seen a bunch of people already exiling. I've already seen a bunch of people like